بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So inshallah ta'ala we have resumed our Friday night class, Friday night reflections. And just to remind all of you, this Friday night reflections takes place on the second and the fourth Friday of every month. It takes place on the second and the fourth Friday of every month. And on the first and third Friday of every month, we have the Names of Allah class. If there's a fifth Friday in the month, there's no class. So it works like that. First and third is Names of Allah. Second and fourth is Friday night reflections. For Names of Allah, it's obvious that the topic is that we take one or two names of Allah in every class and we explain them and so on. Friday night reflections has always been traditionally a mixed set of topics. Sometimes we do a little mini-series where we do sort of like a series of topics that are linked to each other. But what I'm focused on right now is I'm actually focused on looking at the questions that get asked the most by people over the month or over the course of the week, and then trying to answer them in a very comprehensive way on a Friday night, in a Friday night reflections, inshallah. So generally for the next few Fridays, inshallah ta'ala, apart from the times that we're not here, the topics will be based on the most commonly asked questions that people would ask me. And last year, in the earlier part of the year, we did something with regard to ruqya shar'iyya. And what we did was, we found so many people were asking questions about ruqya. We made like a comprehensive video on the topic to answer everybody's questions in one video. And tonight, I want to do something similar about a topic which, after ruqya shar'iyya, is one of the topics that I get asked about the most. It's one of the topics that comes into my inbox more than other topics. And that is the issue of marital discord or problems and issues that people experience when they're married. And a lot of people ask for this, and particularly they usually ask for counseling or they ask for meetings and they want someone to help them and talk them through the issues. But having done that counseling I've done that counseling now for probably 2.5 years, maybe 3 years of counseling people through their issues. I've found that a lot of what I say could be distilled into a video. Now, not everybody here in the audience tonight is going to be married. However, I would presume that either if you're not married, you're looking to get married, or you're thinking about getting married at some point. And those who are married now, inshallah ta'ala, will benefit from it. Or you yourselves know someone who is going through these issues, and you can use this as a little training program on how to help them. Now, the advice tonight that we're going to use, we're going to talk about a framework. So I'm not going to talk about specific situations. I'm not going to talk about specific people. What I'm going to talk about tonight, inshallah ta'ala, is a framework, a series of points that you can go through, and that if you go through these points, they resolve 90% of the issues that people have, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Okay, so we're going to start with our first point, insha'Allah ta'ala. The first point, just by way of introduction, is that marriage is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who brings about love and mercy and tranquility in the married household. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Ar-Rum, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jal said, from the signs of Allah, from the ayat, the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal, is that Allah has created for you, from you, spouses. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. Now this is a beautiful, this is really, if you understand Arabic, you have to ask yourself if you got this point or not, because it's a little bit subtle, but it's beautiful. When we use the word second means to live with someone. When we use the word second in Arabic, we don't usually say سَكَنْتُ إِلَيْهَا, I lived towards her. We would say سَكَنْتُ مَعَهَا, I lived with her. So why is it that Allah Azza wa Jal says لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا? Here Allah Azza wa Jal is combining two meanings in one. It's like you're getting two meanings instead of one. You're getting the meaning of a second, meaning to live with her. And you're getting the meaning of a second, meaning to find peace and tranquility and sakina with her. Both of them come together. So your wife or your spouse is intended to be someone you live with, and intended to be someone that gives you sakina, makes you peaceful, makes you tranquil. You had a hard day at work, or maybe people are against you and making some problems for you, and you're stressed, and you go home and you see your wife and you feel sakina, you feel peaceful. You feel you can share anything with her. You don't feel that it's, that it's like something you have to keep secrets, or you're not allowed to say things. It's the most open of relationships. You feel you can share things, and you feel you get peace. In fact, we're told to make dua, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. O our Lord, make for us from our spouses and our children قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ is when your eye just looking at them makes you feel good. This is قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. You just look at them and just feel good. Even looking at your spouse should just make you feel happy and peaceful and content and feel good about things. And make us examples. Imam here, وَجَعَلْنَا الْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا, make us an example, a leading example for the pious. So Allah Azza wa Jal said, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And Allah has placed among you, the husband and the wife, mawadda. Mawadda. Now, I like this because a lot of words for love in Arabic. Arabic has a lot of words for love. And there are different words that Allah Azza wa Jal could have chosen to use in this ayah. Why mawadda? Allah Azza wa Jal could have said ishq, passion. He made between you passion. It's a fiery relationship, it's a passionate relationship. Allah Azza wa Jal could have said mahabba, just love, general love, you just love each other. Why did Allah Azza wa Jal say mawadda? Mawadda is love, but mawadda is love and friendship. Notice that mawadda is the same word used when Allah Azza wa Jal talks about friendship in the Quran. Tulquna ilayhim bil mawadda. You show them love, like love as in, you show your friend, you show them a kind of allegiance and a friendship and a love. So what I take from mawadda here is that marriage is not based just upon love, but it's also based upon friendship and looking out for each other. These are all sort of affection. Affection is a much more, I like that word affection. Mawadda is good for it's a good translation of mawadda in English is affection. And that's what marriage is based upon. It's not just love and it's not just passion. It's affection. It's like a friendship and, someone who's on your side and they have your back and you have theirs and you're working together and there's love and there's care for each other. Wa rahmah, and mercy. Mercy. And Allah Azza wa Jal, look at the choice of words, affection and mercy. And Allah has put them in a marriage. You get them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You get mawadda and rahmah from Allah. And that is why we say that in terms of the barakah in a marriage, the barakah comes from obeying Allah. When you obey Allah and you make your marriage based upon obedience to Allah, Allah puts mawadda, affection, and rahmah, mercy, into that marriage. And that is something that we can all take an initial, like a lesson from. That to begin with, make your marriage built upon at-taqwa. Make your marriage built upon at-taqwa, built upon taqwa. Have you thought about the nikah khutbah? For those of you who've got married or those of you who've been to a wedding, can you remember the 3 ayat that the imam would typically read in the khutbah for the nikah? The first is the ayah, there is an ayah in Surah Ali Imran, and an ayah from Surah An-Nisa, and an ayah from Surah Al-Ahzab, if I'm not mistaken. The first, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah as He deserves for you to have taqwa of Him. And taqwa is to do as much as you can to obey Him and to avoid disobeying Him with ikhlas and following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. Have taqwa as Allah deserves that you have taqwa of Him. وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ, and do not die except as Muslims. The second one, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ اتَّقُوا رَبَّكُمْ. O you people, have taqwa of your Lord. الَّذِي خَلَقَكُم مِّن نَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ وَخَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا. Who created you from a single soul and created from it its wife or its mate. وَبَثَّ مِنْهُمَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً. And from those two, He made many men and women. Yani from Adam and Hawa came many men and women. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ. And have taqwa of Allah, the one that you ask your rights through. Yani when you ask for your rights, you ask it through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And have taqwa of Allah as it relates to your relatives and your relations. Inna Allah kana alaykum raqiba. Allah is always watching you and taking you to account. The third ayah, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. O you who believe, fear Allah as He deserves to be feared, and speak a word that is true. Have taqwa of Allah and speak the truth. Say something that's right. Say the right thing. قُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. If you do this, Allah will correct your deeds and forgive your sins, and whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger has indeed achieved a great success. طيب. These 3 ayat, the khatib would typically say them, or the imam who's doing the nikah would typically say them before the nikah is done. Are there any themes you notice? The word ittaqullah comes at least 4 times. Doesn't that tell you that marriage is based upon taqwa? 4 times that I can count at least. Ittaqullah, ittaqu rabbakum. Taqwa, 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 taqwa. And Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. If the people of the towns had taqwa and iman, we would give them the barakah of the heavens and the earth. You want barakah in your marriage, it will only come from taqwa. And taqwa is not your spouse's fault. It's not like, okay, well, I would have taqwa if she would behave. Taqwa is your personal responsibility, that you are striving to do more to obey Allah and to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal less. Obedience to Allah and His Messenger is a theme. وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ فَازَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. Being truthful and saying the right thing, choosing your words and being careful about what you say. قُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا يُصْلِحْ لَكُمْ أَعْمَالَكُمْ. Do it and Allah is going to correct your deeds. Allah is going to correct your marriage. There's a lot of benefit in just these ayat. If you just study these three ayat, I think you could solve lots of marital issues with these three ayat. But in any case, what we're going to do inshaAllah ta'ala, or these three passages, what we're going to do inshaAllah ta'ala is to look at certain elements and we just sort of introduce that. The other thing I want you to bear in mind before we really get into the topic is the seriousness of marriage. Allah Azza wa Jal said in Surah An-Nisa, if I'm not mistaken, وَأَخَذْنَ مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. They took something heavy from you. They took a serious oath from you. Marriage is described as being مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا, a promise, a mithaq, like an amana, a responsibility, a mithaq, an agreement, a promise, an oath, which Allah described it as ghalidh. It's thick and heavy and weighty. It's a big thing. Allah Azza wa Jal didn't say, it's a light, it's hayyin. Allah didn't say it's hayyin, it's easy. He didn't say that it's a matter that is, it's yasir, it's light, it's easy. Allah Azza wa Jal described it as being ghalidh. It's a big, heavy, weighty, thick promise that you made. It's not a light thing. So we should take it very, very seriously. And we should realize that if we're not fulfilling the rights of our spouses, the danger is that Allah Azza wa Jal is going to defend and is going to protect our spouse against us. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make right the wrongs that we have, or take us to account for the wrongs that we have done. So you take it seriously. It's not a joke. It's not a light thing. It's not something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it's light. The Prophet ﷺ described it as the most serious of conditions. He said that these conditions, the conditions that have the most rights to be fulfilled, are those which make the private parts halal. The conditions which are the most serious in the sight of Allah. It's not the business conditions you make, it's not the sale you make, it's not, these are not the conditions that are the most important. The conditions in marriage are the most important conditions and the most weighty conditions. So it's a serious thing. Now, my first point, and this is just an introduction to get you thinking, my first point that I say to every married couple that come and they sit and they have a counseling session, and usually the first thing I say to them, and the first thing I think about, is that marriage is a set of rights. Marriage, it is a contract of huquq, of rights. Marriage in Islam is a bit different to marriage in Christianity or marriage in Western culture. Originally, marriage in Western culture was more about owning your wife. It was more about like, okay, now that's why she takes your surname, your second name, because it's like you own her. Like this is the origins. You can research the origins of this. And the origins of it is like, because basically you own her and like you can do whatever you like. Islam was never like that. Islam restricted marriage. Islam took the marriage that was present in the time of Jahiliyyah, and it restricted the marriage. And this is why when you hear people saying, why does Islam allow 4 wives? Hold on a second. Islam didn't allow 4 wives. Islam restricted the number of wives you can have. In Jahiliyyah, they would marry 800 women, 80 women, 60 women, 70 women. Doesn't know where she is, what she's doing. Doesn't have any care for her or any looking after her. Islam limited it. Islam didn't expand it from 1 to 4. Islam limited it to 4 as a maximum, not as a target. It's a limit, not a target, guys. In any case, marriage is not like that in Islam. In Islam, marriage is an exchange of rights. A husband has rights over his wife, and a wife has rights over her husband. It's not that he has all the rights and she doesn't have any. And it's not the fact that she has all the rights and he doesn't have any. Instead, it is a balance of rights. Some of those rights might be conditions that are written in the nikah contract, but most of them aren't. There's like a default contract that you get when you get married in Islam. There's a default contract, this is your, sort of your basic rule. And then you can customize it. You can add your own rights on top. You can add some conditions and things like that. But the basic nikah has certain rights that are given by Islam. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about those rights tonight, because what I would advise people to do is, I'm just going to say this. A lot of people, we understand the rights of the husband and the rights of the wife. We understand them through culture, not through Islam. Most people have no idea what the Islamic rights of a husband and Islamic rights of a wife are. For example, how much time you spend or don't spend with your wife. For example, does a wife have to serve her mother-in-law and father-in-law? All of these things we take, these are just random examples. But these are taken primarily from culture. We learn how to behave as a husband by looking at our fathers and our uncles and our friends and whatever. A lady learns how to behave as a wife by looking at her mother and looking at her aunts and her sisters and so on. She doesn't learn how to behave as a wife usually إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَهُ رَبُّهُ, except the one Allah has mercy on. Most people don't learn the rights of the husband and the wife from Islam. Now, don't get me wrong, your culture might be 70% compatible with Islam or 80% compatible with Islam, or it might be like mine and be like 10% compatible with Islam. But the point is that it's not how you learn the rights of the husband and the wife. I would recommend that the very first stage in any marital discord is for you to get a really good, either a lecture or either a book, and from the best of the books is the marriage series by Sheikh Muhammad al-Jibari. It's a beautiful, shafahullah wa afah. It's a beautiful, beautiful series of 4 books, which the first book talks about choosing a spouse, and even this can be beneficial when you're already married, by the way, because it tells you what you should be as a spouse. Like if it tells you how to choose one, it tells you what you should be. The second one is about marital intimacy. The third one is the rights of the husband and the wife. And the fourth one is about children. Amazing series. You can get them from Dar es Salaam in Sharjah. I saw them, I went to Dar es Salaam, they have them for sale. In Dar es Salaam in Sharjah, there's 4 books. One is pink, one is green, one is blue, and I don't know what the other one is. But you can see them there, the marriage series, 4 books. Go through the rights of the husband and the rights of the wife, and understand what Islam gives you. And if you find something's not answered, maybe you can look for a fatwa on it. You search a website or whatever, and you look for details about it. Don't ask what I want, what I expect. Or I want this and I want that, and I don't know why he's not giving me this, and he said and she said. Instead of that, look at what does Islam, before we started the marriage, what was the contract that we both took in the name of Allah that Islam gave us? What were the rights of the husband? What were the rights of the wife? They could be financial, they could be the way that you live together, they could be the amount of time you spend together, they could be fairness, issues of fairness, they could be many, many different things. Probably the hardest one to understand and the most comprehensive of all of the rights is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Live with your wives bil ma'roof. Bil ma'roof has two meanings. One of the meanings is in a good way, in the best way. And be the best husband to your wife. And the other meaning of ma'roof is in accordance with the expectations of the people. Al-urf. Al-urf is what people like sort of habitually expect. So if you're married to a princess, she is going to have a certain standard of living and a certain thing that she expects from her husband. That's the reality of it. So you still have to live with her bil ma'roof. You have to match the expectations of the culture to a certain extent, where they do not contradict Islam. So this one's a little tricky. The other ones are easier. Like, for example, she has the right to clothing, she has the right to food, she has the right to accommodation. That's a bit easy. Because, like, look, I've put a roof over her head and, you know, she gets to buy clothes and I buy food. But it's more this one, bil ma'roof. How much should you buy her? How much food should you buy? Where should you buy it from? Can she come and say, I complain because my husband keeps buying from Carrefour, he doesn't go to Spinneys? Is that acceptable? Bil ma'roof. What is considered in the society as being normal and acceptable, and you have to bear in mind the social status of the spouses. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about dhu sa'a, let the one who has a lot of money, let him spend min sa'ati, from his money. And the one whose money is limited, he spends according to what he has. So that tells you that the social status, it is taken in mind, and the amount of, you know, sort of wealth people have. But generally, you want to live in a way that is good with each other. So that's probably the hardest of the rights to understand. A YouTube lecture would be good, different, but you want to be basically separately, going through the rights of the husband and the rights of the wife. But here I bring a big, big but. It's huge. Okay? Capital letters. Do not use Islam as a stick to beat your spouse with. This is so common. In fact, it's the most common thing that I get when I am dealing with marital issues is people using Islam as a proverbial stick to beat the other person with. So they read the huquq of the husband and the huquq of the wife, the rights of the husband, the rights of the wife, and then they plan their arguments around it. See, I told you you're no good because Allah said this, and you don't even do it. You know, like, and that's no good. You should never ever use Islam as a way to get ahead in an argument. This is a kind of, really in reality, it's a kind of nifaq. I'm not going to say it's a nifaq, i'tiqadi, takes you out of Islam, but it's not the behavior of a person who is a person of iman, that you use Islam to gain points over someone. Like, I'm going to use Islam to put you down, or I'm going to use Islam to prove, you know, it's not about saying your rights, like saying, look, Islam gives me this right, that's different. But sometimes the arguments are built around, and if one of them is a bit more knowledgeable than the other, the more knowledgeable one will just keep on throwing hadith. Just keep on throwing hadith. You know, the husband is a bit more knowledgeable, and the wife says, Wallah, you don't give me your time. Wallah, the Malikiyya said, and they had an opinion, and the Shafi'iyya said, and he's just like throwing things at his wife to just, you know, like to oppress her in reality. He's not looking at the reality of the situation. He's using Islam as a stick to beat his wife with. And this is not acceptable. Okay. On the topic of rights, we have two more points. Number one, if your spouse is not fulfilling your rights, that does not give you an excuse to not fulfill theirs. This happens a lot. No, my husband doesn't spend money on me, so I don't fulfill his rights. And you can't do that. When you got married, as long as there is a nikah between you, and you have not got divorced, and there is a nikah between you, you are obliged in the sight of Allah to fulfill the rights of your spouse, even if they fulfill none of yours. Does that mean you have to stay like that, miserable, living like a prisoner? No, then that's an issue of fixing the problem, or potentially moving away from the marriage, or divorce or separation or whatever. But while you're in that marriage, you don't have the right to say, I'm not going to give them their rights because they're not giving me mine. And this is the most important point when it comes to the rights. Look at yourself first. So the first time you go through that book, don't go through it to mark all the things that your spouse doesn't do. Go through it and mark the things that you don't do. Blame yourself first. Didn't Allah Azza wa Jal say, وَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالنَّفْسِ اللَّوَّامَةِ, I swear by the soul that blames itself. You've got to look at yourself. You have to look at yourself first. And all throughout the marital discord process of making islah and fixing things between the two of them, one of the most important things is that you look at yourself first. Because too many people, they come to the counseling session and say, okay, bismillah. Go ahead, sister, what's the matter? My husband. Okay, brother, go ahead. My wife. Neither of them is looking at themselves. What I'll say to them is, reverse it. You're only allowed to complain about yourself, and you're only allowed to complain about yourself. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Fadlan min Allahi wa ni'ma. I don't have anything to say. La wallah. That's not a sincere person. A sincere person who looks at themselves will see a huge amount of flaws and errors. So usually one of the things I use, and I use this a lot, is I will swap it over and say you're only allowed to complain about yourself. Bismillah. And you're only allowed to complain about yourself. And it makes them really think. Now, I'm not going to say that you don't raise a concern that, for example, my husband isn't, what I feel the problem is my husband isn't doing this or my wife isn't doing this. But really, you need to look at yourself first, because I promise you, you're not innocent. Didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell you to make istighfar, tell you to make tawbah, tell you about all of the sins that you do? Reality is, none of us are innocent. So when you start from the principle that I'm innocent and she's guilty, or that I'm innocent and he's guilty, this is the recipe for disaster. You have to start from the principle that I have mistakes. Now, usually what that leads to is a second statement of, okay, I have mistakes, but it's nothing like his. And then off it goes again. We're going to deal with some of the things to fix that later on, but really, you need to imagine, and I would often say to someone, okay, I want you to imagine that the only one at fault is you. I'm not saying this is true. I just want you to imagine that the only one at fault is you. What are the issues and how will you fix them? And that way, people will come to realize that there are things that they can do. Now, why do we do this? To be honest, it produces amazing results with the other person. Because the other person sees, subhanallah, I see my spouse working to correct their faults. I'm not going to work to correct mine. Some people will not, but the vast majority of people, when they see the other person working really hard to fix their faults, they certainly start thinking, well, actually, maybe I should be starting to do something to fix mine. And it takes away the blame game of just sitting there and saying, she does this, you do this, if you did this, I wouldn't do this. It takes it away. Okay. Also, on the topic of rights, but another point that I make Don't demand 100% of everything. Forgive and overlook. If you demand 100% of the time, you are heading for a rapid divorce. And that is not my statement, but that is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, who said that the woman was created from the rib. And the most bent part of the rib is the upper part. And if you try to straighten it, what's going to happen? You're going to break it. And if you leave it, what's going to happen? It's going to stay bent. فَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. So treat your women well. This is a very important hadith. Some of the women hear this hadith and they get a little bit upset. But in reality, this hadith is a mercy to the women. And it's a very comprehensive understanding of how, as a man, you can't demand 100% from your wife 100% of the time. You can't do it. You can't demand 100% of the time. That is the meaning of the statement. If you bend it, if you try to straighten it, you will break it. Breaking is divorce. And if you're going to try and take something that Allah created like that, and you're going to push it so hard to change the way that Allah created it, ultimately, you are going to break it. And it's not going to work. And if you leave it there, it's still going to be crooked. So don't feel that, don't expect perfection from each other. And even though this is primarily from the man towards the woman, because maybe the man would demand more from his wife even than what maybe she would demand from him, but to a certain extent it works both ways. Don't demand 100%. Let them forgive. فَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. Let them forgive and let them overlook. Forgive and overlook. Don't you want Allah to forgive you? You, subhanAllah, Yawm al-Qiyamah, you're going to come before Allah Azza wa Jal with so many things you've done wrong towards Allah. Any mountains of things you've done wrong towards Allah. And what you're going to say to Allah? Allah forgive me, Allah overlook it, pardon me, accept it from me, I'm so, this is not how, you're going to make every excuse. When your wife comes with some small thing she did, you want to take her to account for everything, and then you want Allah to forgive you for all of your mistakes and all of your errors? That's not fair, that's not realistic. Just like you want Allah to forgive your shortcomings, you need to also forgive other people's shortcomings. That's the ayah in Surah An-Nur. Let them forgive and overlook. Do you not want Allah to forgive you? Also on that, similar to that, or another side of that is, look for the good in a person. Sometimes I'll do this in marriage counseling. While they're telling me how bad the husband is, say, okay, stop. In the next 5 minutes, you can only tell me what's good about your husband. And you can only tell me what's good about your wife. Bismillah. Why? Because didn't the Prophet ﷺ say that if you dislike one characteristic, you'll love another, you'll be pleased with another? That's the reality of it. Reality of it is you're still married because you still like something about that person. There are still good things. And they will say, Wallah, it's true. I really like this about them. I really like this about them. I really like this about them. But, yeah, there's always going to be a few of those. There's always going to be a few of those. Tayyib, if you don't ask for your rights 100%, if you don't ask 100% of your rights, which rights should you give more importance to? What I often say to people is, what you need to do is you need to look at the most important thing, one of two things. Either you look at the most important thing to you, or you look at the one that you think can be fixed the easiest. So it's either the big win or the quick win. One of those two. The big win is the one that is the most important to you. Look, I can handle everything if only he would, ... I would be happy with her, I could live with all the stuff she does, but if only she would, ... That's the big win. Sometimes you're going to put emphasis on that. Sometimes you're going to put the emphasis on the quick win. You know what it is? If he just tidies up his socks, like that would make my life a lot easier. Well, how many women you get with minor complaints like this, that the marriage instantly gets better if only the guy will pick up his laundry and put it in the basket. Or wash the dishes or something. This is what we call a quick win. It's really not the core problem in the marriage, because let's be honest, people don't get divorced because the guy doesn't wash the dishes. Like buy a dishwasher, and it's not like, people don't get divorced for that. People get divorced though by sometimes, have you heard the expression, the straw that breaks the camel's back? You keep loading stuff on the camel, eventually you load one straw and the back breaks. Reality is that sometimes the little things can be quick wins. You can say, look, I tell you what, it's just one thing. If we can just do this one thing, things will be better. So look for either the big win or the quick win, depending on the circumstances. But don't burden the person with a list that is the length of your arm, because this creates big problems for people. She comes and says, look, he doesn't do this. By the end of the list, I've forgotten all the things that she mentioned that he doesn't do. I'm like, okay, go back to the beginning, doesn't do it. I'm thinking, miskeen, he's sitting there thinking, there is no way I can be better, because she's literally listed everything about me. I don't like the way he looks, and I don't like the way he talks, and I don't like the way he does this, and he's always doing this, and he doesn't do this, and financially like this, and in the house. And look, like this, you're not going to work. Because what you're going to do is you're going to make it impossible for him to win. Make it winnable. You're going to make it impossible for him to win. He cannot win, or she cannot win, because the demands are so great that nobody can fulfill these demands except for a person from the people of Jannah. And definitely not a husband who's probably a bad husband to start with, and he's not doing great. You know he's not doing great. How are you going to give him a list that is like, you know, you went through the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, you read everything the Prophet ﷺ did, beginning to end. I just want him to do these. No, make it winnable. Make it easy for the person. Look, let's just start with one thing. Either we're going to start with the biggest thing, the thing that is the biggest problem, or if we think we can't do it, because the big one is, you think it's too big for them, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the biggest thing is the guy is just on his phone. I'm just using the guy as an example. Sometimes the biggest one, the musibah al-kubra, is that he's on his phone. To be honest, this is fixable. You know, you may be surprised, but these phones all have an off button. And they have airplane mode. And believe it, honestly, your business will not collapse. Your friends will not leave you. You will not, you can switch them off. Or you can put them in airplane. So that's an issue that if that's the biggest issue in a marriage, actually I would say go for that one first. Because to be honest, it's just a habit. It's not that difficult to do. But if the biggest issue is that, I can't handle the way he is with his mom, this is a bit tough. Because reworking the relationship with the mom and the wife, that's going to take a little bit of time and practice, and it's not easy to get right. We might just say, look, are there some small things he could do to begin with just to make your life easier? Well, yeah, to be honest, if he just, came home half an hour earlier, or if he just would take the kids on a weekend for an hour, then, sometimes that might, because you look at it, and if the big issue is too big, then generally I would say go with the quick win. If the big issue is doable, then go with the big issue and just try and solve it from the outset. But don't give him a long list. Give him one or two things. Give her one or two things that she can do. And that will make it easier for the person. And give them some compliments when they do it. Usually he does it, it's like, I bring him for the second counseling session. I'm like, how was your husband last week? Did he leave his phone? He did, but that doesn't stop. No, it's not going to be like that. He did, but no. Give him a compliment. Say to him, yeah, mashallah, he was a lot better. May Allah Azza wa Jalla reward him, and I'm so happy with him. Tell him, tell her she did really well. You're really pleased. it doesn't hurt to a little bit of mawadda, a little bit of rahmah, a little bit of affection, a little bit of care, a little bit of friendship. Sometimes also in this issue, you have to also look out. Part of mawadda is looking out for what is best for the person. Many times, subhanAllah, we look at what's best for ourselves, but we don't really look at what's best for that person. For example, a husband has an opportunity for a promotion at work. I'm just using stereotypes, and maybe the wife works. I'm just using some stereotypes just to make it easy for people to understand. So he's got a chance for promotion. To get that promotion, he knows he has to work a little bit late. He might have to do a few extra hours. There needs to be mawadda and rahmah between the two of them. The husband needs to explain that to his wife. Not just like, don't give me hassle, don't ask me about my work. Yeah, it needs to be that, look, coming up, I've got a big project and I might be a couple of hours late each day. It's something that's a one-off, inshallah. I hope it will not be a permanent thing, and I don't want to make it a habit, but I really want to put that extra effort in because I think it's going to make our situation easier. The wife's going to look at that with rahmah, saying, you know what it is? It's good for him. And inshallah, the good is going to come back on me as well. It's good for me and it's good for him. And I'm going to support him in that. And not this, sort of nafsi mentality of demanding everything for yourself. Okay. Another point, I don't have too many more left, but another one that is really important is when you're specifying this one problem, this one issue, be very specific about what it is. Sometimes people, and I have to say women are worse at this than men generally, is that they will give a very generic description of the problem. He doesn't spend time with me. Miskin, you ask him, how much time you spend with your wife? Well, I come home at 6 o'clock every day, and I don't go out with my friends at all. Jumu'ah, I'm home. Saturday, I'm home. And what do you want from me? My heart? So when you ask her, she's not wrong, but she hasn't explained the real problem. The real problem is not that he doesn't spend time with her. The real problem is he doesn't spend quality time and he doesn't give her attention when he's home. So he's home and he said, I'm sitting next to you. What do you want from me? Where shall I sit? I'm sat next to you. But he sat next to her watching the TV, or he sat next to her on the phone, or he sat next to her talking to the kids, or whatever. You need to sometimes define the problem. Sometimes the problem is not that he's not spending time with me, like physically he's there, he's in the house, or he's even sat next to you. Like you ask, he's like, look, I go to bed at 10 o'clock, I'm lying next to her for for 8 hours, 9 hours. What does she want from me? But he doesn't talk to her. She wants to talk about something, she's got something built up inside, and he's just like, gets into bed, reads his phone, straight asleep. He doesn't talk. And that's against the sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, and I'm not going to, by the way, say that I'm good at this, but this is not me praising myself by any means. But I'm just going to give the nasiha for everyone, myself and for you. The Prophet ﷺ, when he would finish with tahajjud and he would go to bed, if Aisha was awake, he would ask her how she was, and he would ask her about her day, and he would ask her about what she needed. And if she was asleep, he would let her sleep. Guys, this is like golden. Wallahi. Try this. Wallahi, it's like golden. Yeah? If she's awake, talk to her. If she's asleep, don't wake her up. We do the opposite. When she's asleep, Allah musta'an. We come in, bang the door, bang the lock, the key, bang the plates in the kitchen, bang the fridge door, come in, everything is like loud noises. Then she wakes up and you're like, okay, let's talk about it. How was your day? She's not going to say something nice to you. Don't ask me about my day. That's like that. When she's awake, it's like, don't talk to me, I'm tired. And he goes to sleep. It needs to be the other way around. When you see she's awake and she wants to talk, give her some time. Give her some of your time, like the Prophet ﷺ used to do. And when she's asleep, leave her asleep. Don't wake her up as much as you can. Learn to be quiet. And in these small things, subhanAllah, it makes a big difference. But what my point was in this originally is, be specific about what the real problem is. Because too many people, wallahi, they're not, it's too generic. It's too like, he's not good to me. That's not like, what do I do with that? Like, how do I fix that? Give me some actionable points I can actually do, but I can't do anything about that. He's not good to me. And worse than that, and the word that a woman is never allowed to use, abadan, is never. Or always, in a negative context. It is absolutely haram for a woman to use about her husband the word never or always in a negative context. He's never done anything good for me. He's never let me sleep. He's never been kind to me. He's never taken care of me. He's always on his phone. Like, these words, wallahi, they don't bring any good. They bring you, in themselves, they may reach the level of being haram. Because in reality, this is kufr and ni'mah, rejecting the blessings of that person that they've done for you, the good things that person has done for you. Because in reality, it's not the case that they've never, ever come home early. The reality is they don't do it much, or they're not doing it right now. We've never been happy. Really? At the first day to the last day, like 10 years to 15 years, you've never had one day of happiness? Billah? Don't be silly. This is not realistic. So be a little bit, be fair, and both do it. And the men do it as well. Be fair, but be specific about what the problem is. The guy doesn't understand. You're not spending time with me. He's like, Allah, Brother Tim, I'm hitting my head off a brick wall. She's telling me, don't spend time. I took time off work. And she said, you still didn't spend time with me. Because what she's saying and what you're doing is two different things. The guy is understanding something completely different, and she's understanding something completely different. Different. What she wants is attention, not time. She doesn't care how many hours he's in the house. Probably wants him to leave more. She wants attention, not time. Attention, and she wants him to like fuss around her and ask her things and just generally be around her and fuss around her. She doesn't actually want him to spend 12 hours or 15 hours in the house. That doesn't interest her. She wants attention, not time. So be specific about what the problem really is, and it will help the other person to understand. Like even the generic things of, I don't like the way that you are with your sister or your brother or whatever. It needs to be a bit more, you need to give something someone can do. And be specific, because people may misunderstand each other and the shaitan may help in that. And don't discuss when you're angry. This is one of my key points. Don't discuss marital issues when you are angry. It leads to just blame and fighting and you name it, across the board. Discuss your problems when you're having a good day. Some of you turn back and say, I don't have any good days. We stop people saying that. There's never a good day. No, there are good days. Don't discuss your problems when you're angry and upset, because you're not thinking straight and you're not actually coming up with what is needed. Discuss when you're actually happy. So let it go, go to sleep, ignore it, whatever. When things get a bit better and you say sorry to each other and you kind of relax, at that point, discuss what happened. Say, look, can we have a chat about it? Can we just sit down and talk about it? And I'm happy. Look, I said sorry, you said sorry. It's gone, it's forgotten. I just want to, can we talk about what happened and maybe what I did wrong? Because again, you're going to blame yourself first. Look, just tell me, what did I do wrong? Look, it was this, and maybe did I do something before that? And what about, she'll say, what about me? And you discuss when you're happy, not when you're angry. Too many people, they have fights, and they discuss those fights when they are angry with each other. They discuss who did something wrong. And that's a recipe for disaster. You need to discuss things when you've said sorry and things have been, but you need to discuss them with hikmah, wisdom. You can't discuss them by bringing up everything and making the person angry again. But you got to look and say, look, really, what was the problem? Really, the problem was just this one here. Really, the problem was just make it simple. You look at the quick wins and so on and use the hikmah. And the last point that I have, because I don't want this to go in too long, and this is a major gripe of mine, a major complaint when I do marriage counseling, getting other family members involved. The only person that should ever know, except in very rare circumstances, generally, the only person that should ever know that a husband and wife are fighting are those two people. Their kids should not know. Definitely their parents should not know. Their siblings should not know. And one of the biggest things I see is the woman, she has an issue, she tells her mom, her dad, her sisters, her brothers, her uncles, her cousins, probably puts it on Facebook, and the world knows about it. And the guy also goes to work, and he tells his work colleagues, and he tells his friends, and he tells his family, and he tells his mother, and then she uses it against the wife, and big issues. In reality, the way to solve this is keep the arguments between yourselves. And the reason for that is husband and wife are merciful to each other. Allah's put rahmah there. It's easy for them to forgive. Look, I'm sorry, I went over the top. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry too. Okay, all love and peace and harmony, everything's good. But once you brought the mother-in-law in, she's not going to drop it. Straight up, that mother-in-law, she is not going to drop this issue. She's going to bring it up. You dropped it ages ago, and she's going to bring it up for you again and again. The same for everyone. You need to just let the issues be between you, even the children. Because when the children get older, they may also do the same thing. You know, I don't respect my dad because I've seen how he treats my mom. I don't respect my mom because I've seen she doesn't listen to my dad. And problems come, and they go telling people, oh, well, you should see my mom had a fight yesterday with my dad. My dad threw something at her, and she did this, and like, it goes big. Instead, keep it small. Keep the arguments private, and let everybody think that you guys are living the dream life. You guys are living the dream in everyone's eyes. When you know there's a problem, but it's between you. There are some exceptions to that. If you have to reach out to a third party, then I would say if you do reach out to a third party, you should reach out ideally, first of all, to someone who is independent. Someone who is maybe away, who doesn't know you, like an imam or a counselor or something. And the reason for that is generally, it's like, I don't go home like worrying at night about the arguments that people have with each other or something like that. Like it's impersonal. It's like it's not the person is not involved. When you sometimes go to a family member, unless that family member has a lot of hikmah and wisdom and they're known for being able to sort people's problems out, usually that family member, something will go in their heart because they're involved in it. If you do need family members, you could, of course, do what Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَبَعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا. Send one person from his family and one person from hers. But this is not the first step in solving marital problems. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَعِذُوهُنْ. The first thing you do is admonish. You talk to each other, you admonish, you say, look, this is wrong, this shouldn't be like this. There's a lot of things come. وَهْجُرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. Turn over from them in the bed and so on. There's a lot of things come before فَبَعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا. This is when it's like on the verge of divorce and there's nothing left except to bring one person, and the whole family knows about it anyway. Just bring one person from that family and one person from that family and let them try and make islah between them. But in terms of generally little problems and even bigger problems between the husband and the wife, extend it to a third party who is neutral if you have to. There were a lot of points that I wanted to cover in this lecture. Once again, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي. I don't claim myself to be innocent by any means. At the end of the day, we all make a lot of mistakes. And sometimes the people we make the most mistakes with are our spouses, because they are the ones closest to us and they have to endure us for longer than, like an hour here and an hour there. They have to endure us for the majority of the day and the night. And so in reality, often we are the most flawed in our behavior towards our spouses. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. The best of you are the one who is the best to his family. Because really, if you are really good to everybody else but not very good to them, that says a certain thing about you. But if you're good to your family as well as being good to other people, wallahi, that's a sign of a person who has reached a level of khair, a level of goodness, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with, is that they're good to their family and that they're good to other people as well. So the best of you are the ones who are best to your family. So as I said, the purpose of making this video was just to talk about some of the experiences I had when I was doing marriage counseling and some of the solutions that I came up with, which are very generic and work for most people, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Especially because I'm having less and less time now, pretty much very rarely that I can accept any counseling at the moment. Because of my work schedule, I don't really have any time for it. So for that reason, I'm trying to make something that I can use as an alternative, at least initially. Are we going to wrap it up there, inshallah? Okay. Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.